Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Will Galloway, Uncle Bill by Houses. I am so excited. In today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down the 10 different ways that you can get into real estate. Don't make this complicated. We're going to break it down. We're going to make it simple and easy for you to make a decision. After this video, you'll be able to know what direction you want to go in when it comes to the real estate business. Let's go.
I've been blessed to make some money off of real estate. Subscribe to the channel, I can show the way. Uncle Bill buy houses, let them demonstrate. Uncle Bill buy houses, let them demonstrate. Real estate crazy, know that God made me. Real estate pay me, real estate pay me. Need to tune in now. Real estate pay me, real estate pay me, real estate pay me.
What actually got me into the business of real estate? I've been in the business, since 2013-ish. And this was the first strategy that I implemented. And this is called wholesaling. And also I'm going to say wholesaling / bird dogging, because I'm going to break down the difference between the two. So when we talk about wholesaling houses, we're actually talking about assigning contracts and actually doing double closes. So let me just first talk about all of the parties that are involved in the actual wholesale transaction. So of course it's you as the wholesaler, right? And your goal is to do mass marketing meaning you want to do driving for dollars, where you're driving around looking at abandoned houses, getting addresses, getting in touch with the owners to see if they want to sell. You're going to be doing direct mail, meaning you're going to be sending out postcards, you're going to be sending out letters. We're also going to be skip tracing those phone numbers that when we find these people. So we're going to be pulling lists from places like PropStream and PropWire and all these different sources where we can use those lists. Now we can target them. Like I said, we're going to do direct mail. We're going to do SMS marketing, where we can actually send them text messages to ask them, do they want to sell their property? We can send them voice RVMs, ringless voicemails. We can actually ask them, through a voicemail, do they want to actually sell their property? And also cold calling is another popular one. We actually dial for dollars. We actually calling these homeowners, asking them, do they want to sell their property, right? And also there's a lot of different more, you got your online, where you got web presence or website. Of course, you could do Google ads, you could do Facebook ads, YouTube ads, the list goes on and on. There's different ways you can actually market to these homeowners. But the goal is to attract these homeowners, get on a conversation with them, talk to them, and find out, do they want to sell their property? Your ideal target audience is going to be a motivated seller, somebody who wants to sell, somebody who's in a distressed situation. They got to be in a distressed situation to want to sell, because if they're not in a distressed situation, pretty much they're not going to want to sell at a discount, because you got to get the property at a discount for it to make sense. Because in the real estate market, you're going to hear this over and over from me, you make your money on the buy. So in wholesaling and flipping houses, you got to buy right, you got to contract it right at the right price. So again, once we find these people, we talk to them, have casual conversations with them about their property. We got a long script that we go through, guys, where we actually talk to them, asking them a series of questions about their property, getting a little bit more information, finding out what their reason is for wanting to sell. The goal is to be able to, again, buy it right at the right price, contract that property. And once we put that property under contract, now we have equitable interest, right? So what I mean by equitable interest, meaning I have multiple things that I can do when I have equitable interest contract. One, I can take that contract and I can actually assign the contract, because I have equitable interest, and I can assign my rights of it over to another buyer. Let's use numbers for an example. Let's say I got a property under contract with John for $100,000. Let's say once I put it under contract for $100,000, I have two things that I can do. One, I can assign it over to another buyer who may want to pay me $120 for the property, $110 for the property, right? Or I can purchase the property again, because I have equitable interest. I can buy it, hold on to it for a rental, flip, or whatever that looks like. Or I can assign or double close that property with another buyer. And again, in another video, I'll go a little bit more in depth. I'm just trying to get through the 10 so you can actually make a defined decision on which strategy makes sense to you. But again, once I, have equitable interest, let's say, the goal is to wholesale that over to another buyer. So now my goal is I'm either going to assign it, meaning I'm going to assign my rights of this contract over to them for a fee. Using that number for an example, if I have it under contract for $100,000, I want to sign it over to Bob for $110,000. That 100 and 110, the in between is the arbitrage. That's your assignment fee. That's your profit. So you'll essentially be basically letting Bob take your position you assigning the contract over to him for $10,000. That $10,000 will be shown on the hood at closing when you guys close. If you decide to want to do a double closing, which would be you don't want to disclose to the seller, you don't want to disclose the buyer, what you're actually making. Maybe you're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and you don't want any one of them to see, then you can actually do a double closing, which you actually going to buy it from John, right? First closing A, then closing B, you become the seller. Now you're selling it back to Bob. And that's a double closing. Essentially, the only thing that's going to cost you is some extra closing costs, right? But again, disclosure is everything. So if you're, okay with the disclosure and you're not okay with the disclosure, that's how you make a decision. Me personally, I always tend to like do double closings when the profit and margin is a little bit over 10K. Anything under 10K, I mean, I just do an assignment. Some people do assignments, it's no right or wrong. Some people do assignments no matter what the profit is, right? It depends on your buyer and what your relationship is. So essentially that's wholesaling, right? We do these all the time. Again, you can, we got partners and some of our students actually got 6-figure businesses making 6 figures a month wholesaling houses every single month. This is how I got started in the business. This is how I was able to scale up to, from wholesaling to, rentals and fix and flips, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But yeah, wholesaling is a great strategy. And the thing I love about wholesaling the most is you can actually get into the business with limited capital, no credit, none of that, right? You can just get into there with a lot of sweat equity. You can partner with people on their deals, with no money out of pocket. If you got a budget, of course, the better. But if you don't got a budget, you can really grind it out and you can find your way into finding deals and co-wholesaling with deals with other wholesalers, and you can make money with no money out of pocket. So I love that strategy because if you're just getting started, you got a little grind, a little grit in you, this is the perfect strategy for you. Now, bird dogging, let me break down what bird dogging is because some people get them mixed up. Bird dogging is actually when you're just scouting for buyers or you're just scouting for sellers, right? So you may not have the time to put them under contract and negotiate the contract because, when wholesaling, you got to know your values. You got to know what the value is to what you're contracting it for. So if you don't, know all of that, you as a bird dog, you're pretty much saying, you know what, I'll find the deals for you. I know how to find sellers, but I don't know how to sell to the buyers. Or I don't know how to find the buyers. So your job solely as a bird dog is to go out. You might put bandit signs out. You might go out and just talk to friends and family members to see who want to sell their house. And instead of you contracting it, you're going to refer it over to somebody like me and say, hey, Will, you could take over the deal. Just pay me a finder's fee, $1,000, $5,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever y'all negotiate. It's all negotiable, right? So that's the difference between a wholesaler, somebody who's taking it from A to Z, and then a bird dogger or a property scout, whatever you want to call it, somebody who, maybe they're just finding a seller for you and just passing it over to you. Or maybe they got a buyer, they want to buy and you got the property and they're just saying, hey, you could handle that part. Just pay me a fee for, me referring my buyer over to you. So either way, that's wholesaling, that's bird dogging. All right, let's jump into strategy number 2. So strategy number 2 is fix and flips, right? Fix and flips. I love fix and flips. I pretty much, once I actually got really good at wholesaling, the thing I like about wholesaling, what actually graduated me to fix and flips was because I was able to understand values. I was able to understand rehab estimates and actually what buyers are looking for, what buyers like, so that's really important, when you're doing fix and flip. So a fix and flip, of course, a lot of you guys seen the show, HGTV, Flip This House, and similar shows are like that where people buy a property at a discounted price, right? And then they put in the repairs and they fix the property up, get it really, really nice, modernize the house, and then they actually sell it at a retail value, right? So you're buying it originally at a wholesale value, and then you're going to sell it at a retail value. And then, again, back to what I was saying earlier, when it comes to fix and flips, you make your money on the buy. Some people think they make their money when they sell it at a higher price, but you can't sell it at a higher price and make a profit without actually buying the property right. Some people use, the 70% rule formula, which I'll go over that formula, which is 70% of the value. So let's just use that $100,000 number again. Let's just say you see a property, the value of the property when it's fixed up and it's renovated, the highest of the value is like $100,000. That's the ARV, the after repair value, right? So once you got your ARV, let's say $100,000, 70% of that $100,000, right? 70% is $70,000, right? So you want to be all in purchase and repairs for $70,000. So that means, hey, you might buy a property for $40,000, then your repairs might be $30,000. So now you're all in at 70. that's at 70% of your ARV, which is that $100,000. So some people use the 70% rule. In this market, depending on what market you're in, sometimes you even want to be lower than that. 70% I would say will be the max, but I would even go lower as 60 to 65%, right? Just to be safe. But essentially, again, you're buying properties from off the MLS, you're buying properties, from other wholesalers, and you're essentially just looking for good deals. Some of the things you want to keep in mind when you're doing fix and flips. One, your construction crew. You got to have the right construction crew, guys, because your contractors will make or break your deals. If they're not, on time, if they don't finish things properly, if they don't know what they're doing, if they don't do good work, if they don't understand design and understand, rehab and making stuff look professional, that will really cost your deal, because you don't want a house that's not renovated right, sitting on the market for a very long time. That will really, really hurt you guys. And the way you do your repairs and the way you do your updates really, really matters when you're on the market. Another thing you want to consider is, having a right real estate agent. So once you get that property, fixed up, you want to have the right real estate agent to be able to list that property, a real estate agent who understands that particular market, who understands how to market that property the right way, because that will make or break you as well. We actually list our properties ourselves. We do flat fee listings because we understand the markets that we're actually fixing and flipping in, and we understand how to talk to the buyers and the agents. So really your choice, I say just getting started, you definitely want to have a good real estate agent on your side, because that agent can also educate you on, what type of updates you want to do in specific areas, because this particular area you might need to do granite countertops. This particular area right here, you might have to do quartz, so it's just little stuff like that, cabinet designs, flooring, different, some areas you can get away with carpet. Some areas you got to get away with hardwood only. Some areas you got to do tiles. So you just got to know these particular things, and most agents in these markets know those type of things. Another thing you want to consider is your funding, right? What type of funding? Are you doing cash? Do you have a lender already ready that's already pre-approved you, a hard money lender probably you're going to be using? So you want to already have your lender in your backhand and already know that whenever you get the right deal, they can move fast, because some of these deals you may have to close in 2 to 3 weeks, right? So you want to already have a lender that's already pre-approved you, because you're going to have to be showing proof of funds anyway. And most lenders will provide you a proof of funds letter so you can actually send over when you're actually looking for deals. And that's really the most part, just making sure you got the right contractor, making sure you have, and make sure you have the right scope, right? So when you, with your contractor is going to make sure you have a scope. He's going to put together a scope of work for you, so you can make sure that you're within budget, right? So you got to make sure you're within budget. So you got to know how much it costs. And he's going to pretty much help you with that. He's going to give you a scope. He's going to give you a rehab estimate, so you can be able to crunch your numbers, because like we talked about that 70%, you want to make sure you don't go over budget. Because when you go over budget, now you're starting to get into your profit margin, right? So that's another thing you want to consider. And area, it matters as well. Where you rehab at matters, right? You want to make sure you're targeting good school systems. You want to make sure the crime rate is down, and you want to make sure you're looking at the days on the market, whatever area it is. You can find the days on the market by Googling. So I think Redfin shows days on the market, because I don't want to be in the area where it's taking 3 to 4, 5, 6 months to sell a property. I want to be in an area where it's like 45 days or less, right? That's the areas I want. Now, those areas might cost a little bit more, but I'm okay with it costing a little bit more for that property, and my profit margin might be a little smaller, but I'm able to turn around much faster. While you're still sitting on this property trying to make a huge profit, I'm turning over multiple properties, because I'm in an area where these properties sell just like that, right? So those are some things you want to keep in mind. So again, you want to find properties, buy them at the right price. You want to make sure you got a good design team. You want to make sure you have a good stager when this property's done. It's good to stage your property, because presentation is everything. When you list that property on the market, you want to make sure the house looks like somebody can move in and they're already feeling like they're at a place where they can live. So that's very, very important. Again, making sure you got the right agent, making sure you got the right contractors, making sure you had to have an architect team to be able to design the floor plan that you might need. You make sure your contractors are licensed so they can be able to pull permits for you. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of profit inside of it. Most fix and flips, take anywhere from, I've seen the lowest I've seen is somebody turn around a property in 30 days, and that's lipstick property that don't really need but cosmetic updates. But sometimes you may have a budget of $50 all the way to $100,000, and them projects can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So you got to make sure that you budgeting for these things, because every day counts, especially when you got hard money. Interest getting paid out every single day, and they're charging you. So when you sell, that has a lot to do with your profit margin. So keep that in mind. So the fix and flips, again, great strategy. I love it. You just got to be very, very keen with your numbers. You got to have the right team, the right crew, the right area, the right property, the right agent to partner with, the right contractors, and you will be able to make a lot of profit doing fix and flip. All right, now it's time to jump into number 3 strategy. Number 3 is actually my favorite strategy, guys. This is the strategy where when you start thinking long-term, you start thinking about residual income, you start thinking about cash flow. Got my cash flow shirt on today. When you start thinking about long-term, you're thinking about rentals. When you're thinking about, residual income coming in, there's multiple ways you can actually do this strategy. Again, you can do just regular rentals, meaning that you can, get your property, put a tenant in there, whether it's a regular paid out-of-pocket tenant, or me, I love Section 8. I love Section 8 because it's guaranteed income coming from the government. And as long as you're in compliant with the, whatever their rules and regulations is, and the property's in good standings, and you pass your annual inspections, you're going to continue to get that that residual income, whatever it is. And I like Section 8 because, again, they pay you pretty much market rent, and I mean, again, you're guaranteed to have that money. I remember when a lot of my colleagues, during COVID, I remember a lot of them, tenants had stopped paying because they were losing their jobs or whatever the issue was. A lot of them wasn't getting paid. And, during that time, most of my properties, if not all my properties, was on Section 8. I was still getting that money from the government every first of the month, right? So it's really, really crucial. I think, again, you want to get to the point where it's cool to do fix and flips. It's cool to do wholesaling. But sometimes, when times get slow or when times get hard, like it did around COVID time, things kind of slowed up. Everybody was kind of on standby and everybody was on pause, not knowing what the market was going to do. I was still getting that residual coming in. So I was able to cover a lot of my overhead, cover my team expenses. And to me, I mean, even when I decide to retire and give it up, that income that'll be coming in monthly, that's forever, right? And and the beauty about my portfolio is I own it free and clear. So it's a blessing to be able to get to that point. Again, it took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of dedication. But again, your goal maybe one day to do the same thing, or maybe you might have, 30 rental houses, and you got, mortgages on them, whatever that looks like, either or, long as you got some type of income or some type of margin coming in from it, because, maybe your rent, your mortgage might be $900, but you're able to rent it for $1,500, and you got a $600, gap between that, right? So again, rentals, basically rentals is self-explanatory. It's either single family or multifamily. When you talk about single family, you're just talking about a regular house, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom house. It could be a duplex. And I believe, when you start getting into duplexes and triplexes, I think it's still single family. Now, when you start getting into 4s, I think, or more, I think that's when you start going commercial, multifamily apartments and stuff like that. But they all work the same. You can invest into a single family house and you can invest into an apartment complex, right? And one thing I like about the rentals is even when you're trying to buy your first house, if I were to do this all over again, if I were to, my first house, I actually got a loan for it, and that's how I was able to eventually turn it into a rental property. But if I was starting all over and I was just beginning and I didn't own a house right now, I would actually do house hacking, right? And house hacking is pretty much when you actually get a house, preferably a duplex or a triplex or even a quad, fourplex. I would do is I would live in one and I would rent the other one or the other 2 or the other 3. That would be me, because that way you're actually letting the other tenants pay your mortgage down and you're actually living rent free. And now you can use that money that you would put into your mortgage. Now you can invest that into other real estate projects or whatever else, your business or whatever you want to do. You'll have that extra income. And again, your first house is never your forever house. It's always going to be an investment. Everybody I've ever known, their first house, they either sold it or they still have it as a rental property. And that's the same thing with me. My house is still, a rental property to this day, my first house. So just keep that in mind. Don't go out. You don't have to worry about going after your dream house in the beginning. Your first house is never going to be your forever house, right? Because eventually you may have a bigger family, and y'all might want to go into another side of town. Y'all might want to upgrade, y'all might need a larger space. So keep that in mind, guys. But I love rentals because, again, it changed the game for me. and the residual that comes in every month, I mean, you can't beat it, right? Another strategy I like that's considered, residual income is like, bank flipping. That's one of the strategies I've stumbled across. Some people call it slow flipping, but I call it bank flipping, where you can actually get that same property and you can actually owner finance it to somebody and get them a 30-year mortgage. And now you're the bank, right? And you're amortizing that. You might pay, between 30 to 40 grand for the property, but then you might upsell the house for like $80,000-$90,000, and then you amortize that over a 30-year period. Now you're not the landlord anymore. Now you're the actual note holder. You're the mortgagee, right? And you're acting as like a mortgage broker, right? So now you're not worried about doing the repairs, because that's the downside about rentals, right? You have to do the repairs. When they call you saying, hey, something, plumbing leaking, my toilet not working, my lights not working, my plugs and my sockets, something going on, is water coming through the house, whatever. It's always something going on. My air ain't working. It ain't hot in here. It ain't cold in here. These are the calls you or your property manager are going to be getting if you hold in a rental portfolio, right? But if you're doing owner finance, and we're going to get into that as another strategy, creative financing. But if you're doing owner financing like bank flipping, you're actually, now you're just the owner of the property and you're selling it to somebody. And now they are the owners. They still have to pay you monthly, which is, over a 30-year period. You get a down payment and then you just cash flow, right? You're not worried about no repairs. That person is responsible for anything dealing with the house because that's their house, right? As long as they continue to pay you within the terms of you guys' contract. So that's, rentals, again, whether you choose single family, multifamily, whatever that looks like. Again, you can also, in the commercial spaces, rentals, you can also rent out. If you have like a plaza, if you want to rent out to somebody who has a business, somebody who has a storefront, right? That's still being a landlord. That's still the rental business, right? So it don't matter if it's residential or if it's commercial, it's a lucrative way to be able to make money. Hold tight. I know you enjoyed this video, but hey, I just wanted to take some time to introduce you to my newest community inside of the school platform. It's called the Flip University. Now, once you get inside of the Flip University, you'll instantly have access to over 5 courses that's already uploaded in there, going over wholesaling, creative financing, just real estate in general, marketing. You'll have access to all of these courses already once you get inside. We also have a general discussion tab. So anytime you get stuck, you got a question, somebody, either me or somebody on my team, will answer that question on the go. And also we do weekly Zoom coaching calls, right? So if you want to jump on a call, you want to go over something, you got a question, you want to go over a deal, anything you want to talk about, you'll have access to me and my team on those Zoom weekly coaching calls. One of the best things I like about the community is I've started implementing one live in-person walkthroughs of one of my properties here in Atlanta. That's right. You get a chance to come to Atlanta. You get a chance to meet me in person at one of my properties. It might be one of my rentals, one of my fix and flips. You'll be able to walk through these properties. You'll be able to ask me any question you want to about the property or anything you got going on. This is what I have for you inside of the Flip University. Hands down, best thing going right now. If you want to get started, you get a chance to vibe and network with other like-minded individuals. So if you want to know a little bit more about the Flip University, click the link in the bio somewhere. You'll see the post. All right, get back to the video. Let's go. Number 4, right? Now, strategy number 4, I haven't actually tried this strategy, but I have so many colleagues who actually was crushing it when this strategy was really, really hot. It's kind of simmered down a little bit. I mean, people are still doing it, so I'm not going to distract you at just the direction you want to go in. But short-term rentals, I would say short-term rentals will be number 4. Again, it was a hot strategy a few years ago. But again, it has died now. And a lot of that comes from regulations. Certain cities got certain regulations. A lot of them making you now get licensed, and they're treating it it's like you're running a hotel. But what Airbnb and short-term rentals essentially is when you get a house and you're actually acting as if like you're a hotel. So, right, you're going to have the house furnished. You're going to be basically subleasing, renting the house out by nightly rates. Some people use Airbnb website, Vrbo website, and there's a couple other different short-term rental websites. And again, you're treating it as like it's your hotel, and you're renting the rooms out and giving them daily rates. So you can rent it out by the whole house, or you can even do by the room, right? So again, this strategy is really good. I still have friends who actively are still doing Airbnbs, and they're still crushing it, and that was because they pretty much had, their feet in the, in the ground, at the early stages and they understand the business, they understand the markets, they understand the trends, they understand how to decorate these houses, how to furnish them the right way, what's the right things to have inside of the properties. They understand which areas are going to rent better because, you know, you want to be in an area where things are going on, where tourists are coming in town, right? Where they might not want a hotel. They may have a family where they need a house, right? So these are some of the things you want to consider. Area is very, very important. You can use sites like 𝐟𝐸 to kind of get an estimate of like what you think you'll be making if you're considering this particular strategy. Also, you have short-term rentals where you're doing, you know, maybe you're using like a furnace finder where you're actually rent to people for short term. So there's some people who may be on a job or, you know, they need like a 3, 4, 5, 6 month stay. They might not want to do the daily rates, but they might want to say, hey, I want to rent, I'm gonna be in town, I'm doing a movie, you know, I'm here in Atlanta. So, you know, people are always in the filming industry here. So they might say, hey, you know, we got a crew that's coming in, we're doing a movie, this movie gonna take 4 months, you know, and we need to rent your house for 4 months. Is that okay? So that's a short-term, you know, midterm rental where you're actually giving them like a you know, like a few months of a contract to be able to stay in the property. And this goes for also flight attendants. Some flight attendants might want to rent it out, you know, because they're in and out of town. They might want to rent it out for 3 to 6 months or, you know, 30 to 90 days or something like that. Also, you know, you may have insurance claims, right? Where people actually have their house burned down or something happened where, you know, all these tornadoes and hurricanes going on. It might be people coming in town here and they might need, you know, until their house get together, they might need to rent a property short term, 6 months, 8 months, you know, and those are insurance claims and insurance will pay you out. Those, you know, are lucrative different ways you can actually utilize your property and make huge profits, right? So the Airbnb, short-term, mid-term business, profitable business. Again, you have to know what you're doing. I would advise you to have a mentor who can actually, you know, show you the ropes and show you how to become a super host, especially on Airbnb, because when you become a super host, you get your listing gets, you know, pushed to the top, and now more people can see your property and you can keep it rented, and you'll know, you know, the time of the year when, you know, it's doing well, the time of the year when, you know, you may have to scale back a little bit, but again, I would advise to get a mentor to be able to show you the ropes, educate you on this strategy to see even if the area you have, is it a good area for Airbnb or not, right? Let's keep it going. So strategy number 5 is group homes or assisted living homes or senior homes or, you know, sober home living, whatever you want to call it. There are different ways, different targeted audiences, but essentially what you're doing is you're renting by the room, right? And again, with this particular strategy, you know, you can go 2 different ways. You can actually go licensed or you can go unlicensed. From my knowledge, you know, the unlicensed way, you know, again, they have different laws that protect you, you know, against being able to not be discriminated against, where you can actually, you know, people can't come in and say, hey, you got all these people in your house, that's illegal. So there are different laws that you are protected by. And, you know, a lot of people all over the country are, you know, talking about, you know, group homes. Some people call them rooming houses or whatever you want to call it, but you basically don't have a license, but you're actually renting rooms out to people individually, right? They got a company, I think, called Pad Split that actually broker these type of deals on their website, where you can actually post your property on this particular website. And people, you know, looking for rooms, you know, they can't afford, you know, affordability has gotten up there, especially with rental properties. So if you got a single person, a 1-bedroom apartment might be, you know, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 or more, depending on where you are in the country, right? And some people living on a fixed income, you know, they're barely making $1,000, right? So them renting a room out for anywhere between $600 to $1,000, $1,200 probably at the max for a room, that's all they can afford. So this particular strategy is perfect for somebody who on a fixed income. Maybe they only getting a Social Security check, SSI, SSDI check. And that's all they can afford, $600, $700, $800 a month, right? Because they still got to eat. They still, you know, got to have a few dollars to be able to live with. So this particular, you know, house or this particular price point works for somebody like that on a fixed income. So you got people who, you know, they get houses and they might be a 4 or 5 bedroom house, or they might even convert it a garage, or they might convert the living room into a room. And now they got 7, 8 different rooms in the house, all inclusive. You know, I think the utilities, everything is included. And they're renting these rooms out, you know, like I say, anywhere between on the low end, $600, $500, depending on where you are on the low end. and you can go all the way up to $1,200, $1,000. If you got a bathroom in there, of course, you can charge a little bit more depending on the size of the room. There's even, I know I have friends that actually put 2 people in a room. So you can either do 1 in a room or you can do 2 in a room, depending on where you are and what your market will allow you. So again, this is a great strategy, if you're, into helping the people, because most of your population is going to be either homeless population, when it's unlicensed, or it's going to be, again, somebody who's on a fixed income. It might be somebody who's coming, from a senior might need it, who's on a fixed income, or somebody who's trying to get back on their feet, coming from a sober living situation, coming from relapsing, and they coming out of a home, and they need somewhere to stay, temporarily until they get on their feet, until they be able to shake off that addiction. So sober houses are, again, those are group homes, and I was trying to think of the word rehab. They might become rehab and they need somewhere to stay. So again, that's unlicensed, right? And then you have your license, where you actually go through the right proper paperwork to be able to do this. Now, the difference between licensed and unlicensed, I already said, of course, there's laws that protect you against the unlicensed, but also with unlicensed, you're not providing any services, right? That's one of the other things that stands out between the two, is you're not providing services. So you don't have nurses in there. You're not providing any medicine. You're not providing anything. You may provide food, but you're not providing any medicine. You're not, taking them to their doctor's appointments. You're not providing any services. Now with license, right, you have to have a license when you're going the license route, meaning that you may be able to charge more. So you're on an unlicensed, it might be anywhere from $600 to $1,200 a room. Unlicensed can be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a room for an individual, right? Depending on, what that person is in there for. But you're actually going through an actual company that's actually placing these people in your properties. You're licensed to be able to have a staff there, right? So you're going to have a staff there. You're going to have nurses there. You're going to have people who actually seeing about these people. So that's why you can charge a little bit more when you're licensed, because you're actually providing a service. So you're actually going to provide medical assistance. You're actually going to be probably providing transportation. So this is a real business where you're going to have employees. You're really running this like a real operation. So the profit margin is going to be more lucrative. You're going to have a little bit more responsibilities when you're licensed. But again, it just depends on, you have the right to be able to get the paperwork all completed to be able to go that direction, or you'd rather just say, I'm gonna just do a smaller operation. I'm gonna rent out these 5, 6, 7 rooms unlicensed, and I'm gonna just make that $600 to $1,000. Or you might be somebody that say, I want to do all the paperwork right. I want to go through it the right way. And not to say either way is right or wrong, but I'm just saying might want to get the license to where you can say, hey, I'm going out to those $5,000, $10,000 clients. I got 5 rooms, and 5 rooms times 5,000 or 10,000. You do the math, of course, after you pay for the food and pay for your staff. But again, that's good money. So group homes, assisted living homes, sober living homes, whatever you want to call it. They even got homes for, teens that have been acting up, teens that are coming from foster care and stuff like that. They have foster care homes, and, it's so many different ways you can actually do this. They got veteran homes. My dad, when I ran into him again, God bless the dead, he's no longer here now, but my dad, he was in a veterans home where it was all veterans, right? So again, there's different classes of people that you can actually house in these type of houses. But again, this is a great strategy, regardless if you go with licensed or unlicensed. Do your research so you'll know which strategy fits your needs and what you decide to want to do. All right, guys, we're in strategy number 6. So strategy number 6, we're talking about tax deeds and auctions. So tax deeds is a great strategy on finding properties. If you're somebody who's looking for properties, preferably if you're looking for properties that you want to actually hold on to, or properties maybe you want to flip at some point. Tax deeds and tax auctions are a great strategy. So real quick, so tax deeds is normally like when somebody get behind on your taxes. And that's the thing about houses, like it's like you're never really on your property. Even if you own it free and clear, you always got to continue to pay your taxes every year. And if you get behind on your taxes, you have a grace period or a certain amount of time before those taxes for your house go up for auction. Somebody actually buy that tax deed. Now, depending on what state you're in, because laws are different in different states. but I'm here in Georgia, so there's a year redemption period. So if I buy some taxes today, I think a year and a day or two, if that person did not redeem their taxes within a certain amount of time, I can soulfully own that property outright, right? Based on the amount of taxes that I paid. So it's a great strategy. Of course, it's not good for the person who loses the house, but it's a great strategy for you can picking up properties for a little bit of nothing, just paying off some taxes, right? So again, this strategy is great. Tax deeds, they got foreclosure auctions. I want to go into auctions as well. They got foreclosure auctions, tax auction. There's different type of auctions, they got seizure auctions. They got websites like auction.com. There's multiple different websites online where you can actually bid on these properties. Now, you can do auctions in person, where normally it's the first Tuesday of the month, where, properties are getting auctioned off, whether you're behind on your mortgage and your mortgage company is auctioning your property off for sale. So there's a foreclosure auction. Again, we talked about tax deed auctions. So some of these auctions are in person and some of these auctions are online, right? Online auctions, again, a lot of people like online auctions because people are just, feel more comfortable behind the computer, just bidding on properties. So another good auction is the land-based auctions. You got the land-based auctions where these properties are very, very distressed properties, and they're very popular in places like Detroit and stuff like that, and other like Birmingham and places like that. But they got land-based auctions where these houses are very, very distressed. So the city is selling it for pennies on the dollar. I've heard properties get sold for like $100, a few $100s, $1,000, right? But you have to be able to get that property, and you have to rehab that property and bring it back up to a living status within a certain amount of time to be able to get it at that discounted price. And I've heard if you don't get it fixed within a certain amount of time, the city can actually take that property back. So you want to make sure if you do decide to go for the land-based option, which I think is an awesome, way to get properties, make sure you have the budget, the money, and the infrastructure and the team to be able to get that property ready, whether you're going to turn around and resell it or whether you're going to turn around and hold it on as a rental. There's even times where you can get these properties because sometimes you may have to put down some money, a deposit, to be able to be able to start in the auction. And I've seen where people have wholesale auction properties where they'll get a property, they'll bid on the property on a foreclosure auction, and they'll get possession of the property, they'll win the bid, and then they'll basically sell that over to one of their end buyers, right? So they got basically possession of the property, and they end up selling that property over to somebody else, just because they have access to that property and they bid and they won the bid. Another thing I like about tax deeds and, different auctions like that is the fact that if you buy the tax deed, and let's say, me here in Georgia, you got a year's redemption. Let's say that person redeems. Depending on what state you're in, you can be able to get up to 20% interest on your money just for your property, your money sitting in that property, right? So let's say they redeem in 3 months, 6 months, right? Let's say I paid, $50,000 for that tax deed. They have to pay me 20% on that money, or whatever the percent is in your state. They have to pay that interest. So it's almost like your money is sitting in a CD or sitting in some type of high equity yield account, right? Where you're either going to get your money back plus interest, or you're going to be able to get the property. So it's almost a win-win. And this is a great strategy. You just got money sitting around and you just want to invest and you want to see your money grow, or you want to luckily stumble up on a good property at a good price. This is a great strategy. Tax deeds and tax auctions and foreclosure auctions, all auctions, great strategy. All right, let's keep it going. So this particular strategy, this is one of the most popular strategies when it comes to real estate. So when you think about real estate, you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent, right? Or a real estate broker. So this is, pretty much most people who are not familiar with real estate like that, they think you have to be licensed to be able to do real estate. And pretty much every strategy that I've talked about so far, you don't have to be licensed, right? But this particular, if you want to become an agent where you're actually listing properties on the MLS, you're actually representing sellers, you're representing buyers, you have to be licensed. You have to go to school. You have to get your actual license to become a licensed agent. So there's all different kind of benefits and perks, pros and cons about being an agent. I know I get this story all the time. Should I get my license if I want to wholesale, if I want to be a landlord, if I want to be a fix and flipper? And it varies, there's different pros and cons. I'll say the pros is, just being able to be up under the brokers, to be able to have that broker is backing you to be able to be up under that broker, learning from that broker, being able to list properties, having access to the MLS, being able to be licensed to be able to, have access to things that you wouldn't have access to if you was unlicensed. Now, the downside to it is you have to abide by, the realtor rules. They have laws that you have to abide by, right? So if you don't abide by those rules, then you can risk losing your license, right? Up under your broker. So you have to be able to be up under a broker. If I think you got to be 3 years or more to be able to apply to be your own broker. But in the beginning, you're going to be up under a broker. So you have to abide by that broker, rules and regulations, right? So there's certain things that you may not be able to do depending on your brokerage, right? So some brokers are not investor friendly. So they might not want you to wholesale properties, which I have a lot of agent friends who do wholesale. So you have to be careful and have these conversations up front. If you're thinking about becoming an agent and you want to be able to partner with the right brokerage, you want to be able to have these conversations before you sign an agreement to be with their firm, to know that, they're in alignment with your goals. So if you want to, you don't have to be a licensed agent, but if you do want to be able to profit by making commissions on sales, then being licensed may be what you want to do. Now, again, I know people who do like a hybrid where, they're a real estate agent, but that's because they want to be able to have access to the MLS. That's because they want to be able to cherry pick certain deals. So if you're going out to homeowners, I have friends that play both sides, where when they talk to a homeowner, depending on if that homeowner wants a quick sale, a cash, fast closing, they might put on their wholesaling hat and say, you know what, I'll just put this property under contract under my LLC and I'll just wholesale this property. But then you might have a seller who just say, you know what, I want retail value for my house, right? And if I'm licensed, I can be able to sign a listing agreement with them and I can put that property on the MLS. And then now it's negotiable. I think they changed the law now to where if I negotiate, you have to negotiate your commission, but standard commission is like 3%, right? So you may have to say, you know what, we're going to list your property, Mr. or Miss Seller, and there's a 5 to 6% commissions, because I may take 2.5 to 3%. The buyer's agent or the other agent might have a 2.5, 3% cushion they might want. So this would be the cost of doing business with that homeowner for listing that property on the MLS. So you make your money on commission as an agent. But again, you can be a hybrid. You can do wholesaling on the side. You can still be a landlord. You can still do fix and flips. Again, but only difference is you have to abide by the real estate laws, rules, and regulations up under your brokerage. And that's very, very important, knowing those rules so you don't break them and so you don't lose and jeopardize your license. All right, we're on number 8. Now, this particular strategy, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but it's a strategy that, again, like wholesaling, if you don't have a whole lot of money, you can actually get started into this strategy. And it's called foreclosure surplus, right? Surplus funds. Look up surplus funds. And I'm going to do another video to go a little bit more in depth about this strategy. But all in all, what this particular strategy is, like we were talking about earlier, how you can lose your property in the auction off foreclosure. But a lot of people don't know that when you're the person who lose your property under foreclosure, that the city is only entitled to the amount of money that's owed for the debt, for the lien or whatever that is. And the rest of that money that's overage money, actually you're entitled to that money. And a lot of homeowners do not know that. There's millions of people who lose their properties in foreclosure every single month, and they don't even know that their surplus funds, the overages that the property minus whatever the city's owe or whatever is due to that bank, the overages is due to the original homeowner. And a lot of people don't know that. So they have people who actually understand the law behind that, and they actually target these people who actually went through these foreclosures, and they say, hey, I can get some money back from that property you lost, right? And I can be able to help you with the process. I can get all the paperwork filled out. I can do everything for you. This is a concierge process. I'll handle everything, the paperwork, the attorney stuff, everything. I'll take care of everything for 20, 30% of the profits, right? So, a seller already might be thinking like, man, I thought I lost the house. I thought I ain't have nothing else coming. And here you are coming on a phone conversation telling them that they have money they're entitled to, but they don't know how to get the money, but you know how to get the money. So you convincing them to sign an agreement with you to allow you to, basically handle that process, right? So it's called surplus funds, it's overages, you know, and essentially if whatever overages is due for that house or owed to that house, you get access to that money, and then you get 20, 30%, 50%, whatever you negotiate. I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30% on average, but it's whatever you negotiate. It's all negotiable, right? But again, this is a strategy a lot of people are not talking about, but again, it's a lucrative strategy. You know, you basically cold calling these people, you getting a list, finding a list where these people have lost their houses, and then you finding out what the overages is, you're finding out what that is, you negotiate them to work with you exclusively, and then you get the proceeds, you get your percentage, and then you give them whatever's due to them. And again, everybody's happy. It's a win-win. They didn't know they had money coming. You helped them get some money they thought they had lost, a house, and you basically showed them that there was money due. They don't know how to go about the process. You do. You take care of that for them, and everybody wins. So that's a great strategy. Foreclosure, surplus, that's number 8. All right, guys, we almost there. So number 9, we're talking about being a lender, a private lender. You can be in the mortgage industry. Being a lender, I like being a lender because you're actually the bank. So you can lend on. So if you got like a 401k, if you got a savings account, you got, you know, some type of IRA, whatever you got, and you want to invest your money into real estate, you can become a lender, right? You can also, I see people becoming lenders off, they pull lines of credit from their houses. They might get 0% interest credit cards and use that money to be able to lend it out and charge anywhere from 10 to 15% interest rates on that money. You can become a hard money lender. Same thing, charge anywhere from 12 to 15% interest on somebody's project. So we talked earlier about people who want to do fix and flip projects. You can fund somebody's property and you do a promissory note with them, and you do, you know, something where it's recorded, of course. You do the right proper paperwork, and you take first lien. You become the first lien holder, first lien position on that property. So if they was to ever sell their property, you know, they have to basically pay you out what's due to you. And this is interest only. So all the money they're paying you monthly on these payments up until the time they're able to sell the house and pay you back, that interest is your money. That's what you're making every single month. So there's a lot of lenders who love this business. They love that interest that kicks in at 15% interest that you're lending on a house that's $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And again, that interest every month, that's interest only. That money that's all your money, and you get your money back. And you might charge points up front, anywhere from 1 to 2 points up front on that loan. So, you know, again, being a private lender, you know, I love this strategy because you're essentially the bank, right? You're utilizing your money that's already making money or just sitting there, not making that much interest in the bank, and you're utilizing it for real estate. And you're making 12 to 15% interest every single month until that loan's paid off. And then once that loan's paid off, somebody sold their project, they sold their, you know, their fix and flip. Now they're on to the next project, or you're on to the next person you're going to lend money to, or that person find another house, and you just keep rinsing and repeating the same thing over and over. Again, you know, lending, again, that's next level. That's like when you kind of like in them times where you got so much money that you just got money sitting where you can just invest into other people's projects, and you can just keep making money on your money. Your money got to just keep working, guys. It got to keep working. So being a private lender is great. Or you can be in the mortgage industry, right? So, you know, a lot of people are getting their mortgage license and they're becoming, you know, brokers, or they're becoming mortgage brokers. And this is when you actually work for an actual bank or a company where you're actually lending money out. And I believe that's more commission based, you know, and you make, you know, still making money on points and stuff like that. But again, you're lending money. You know, anytime you're the lender and not the borrower, you're always in an advantage, right? So lending money, being a private lender, being in the mortgage industry, again, lucrative way to get into real estate. All right, guys, we're at the end. We're at strategy number 10. This is also a great strategy. And this is the creative financing strategy, which there's multiple ways to do creative financing. Of course, you could do sub 2, you could do lease options, you could do wraps. You know, this is a whole nother video itself. I'm gonna just kind of storm through it real quick. But again, we're gonna get into other videos that's kind of really breaking down the numbers, and maybe even some case studies, there's some deals that I've done. But essentially like sub 2, I call it the mortgage takeover method, where you're actually taking over someone's mortgage, right? So let's just say somebody has no equity. and they want to get out of this mortgage and they don't want to keep paying the mortgage, then you come along and say, hey, I'll give you, either no money or I'll give you a few $1,000s. I'll take it over, and you might say, hey, they're going to actually deed the property over to you, right? The mortgage actually is going to stay in their name, but you're actually taking over the payments, right? And once the deed transfers over into your name, the mortgage again stays in their name, but the deed transfers over to your name. Then you have the ability to be able to cash flow that property, keep it as a rental, or you can fix that property up and then you can turn around and sell it. And then once you turn around and sell it, the profit comes to you, the house is sold. Now it's off that seller's credit, but it stays in their name however long they let you keep the property. So some sellers say, hey, I'll let you do this if it got a balloon, meaning they got to sell in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever you guys negotiate. But again, this is a good way you can get into a property, for little to no money. I've got into these deals with no money. I've got into these deals with less than $5,000, $10,000. Because you got to think, trying to get into a regular FHA conventional mortgage, you're going to bring anywhere from 3.5% all the way up to 10, 20%. Even on like hard money loans, sometimes you got to bring 20% to the table just to be able to get into a real estate transaction. But if you can get into a deal for free or maybe a couple of $1,000s to take over somebody's mortgage, I mean, it's a no-brainer, especially if the numbers make sense. Again, you want to make sure you get in it at a good interest rate. In today's market, a good interest rate is anything under 5%. Again, the interest rates right now are like close to 7%. But if you taking over somebody's mortgage who had a 3%, 4%, that's really, really good, because now you can turn around and you might want to sell that and wrap that mortgage, right? So you might want to say, hey, I'm taking over this mortgage. It got a 3% interest rate. And I might want to wrap that, and I might want to turn around and sell it to this buyer, 20,000 down, 10,000 down, charge them 6% interest rate. And then now, I'm wrapping that mortgage, the original mortgage, and I'm adding my interest on there. And I'm even probably cash flowing because of my PITI, principal, taxes, insurance is, let's say $1,000, but I'm able to rent it out to them or sublease it out to them for $1,500. Not only am I cash flowing the extra interest, I'm making money on the extra interest, but I'm also cash flowing the difference. So, being able to wrap it is great. Lease options, again, I talked about this earlier, when you're doing lease option or seller financing is when you're actually becoming the bank again and you're actually owner financing or allowing them to lease for a short period of time with the option to buy. So you're saying, hey, we're going to lease it to you at this amount, this cost for 3 years or 2 years or 1 year. And after that period, you have the option to buy it at XYZ price, right? And if they don't, then you can basically say, hey, you can either redo the lease again, or you can say, hey, I'm terminating and I'm finding another tenant. I'm going to sell the property or I'm going to do whatever with the property. But that person has the lease, the option to buy it. And they can lease it with the option to buy it within that term that you guys agree to. But seller financing, seller financing, what I talked about earlier with the bank flipping is when I may have a property that I own free and clear. I might get a down payment from you. I'm selling the property to you. I'm not transferring the deed because I don't want to have to foreclose on you. We're doing a contract for deed. But that way, if anything, you default or anything like that, I can still evict that tenant. But they essentially still become the owner. So they're taking over responsibilities of the repairs and all of that. And, you just pretty much cash flowing that property. You amortizing it, 15, 30 years, whatever you guys discuss. And you essentially is the bank and you're actually seller financing that property to that particular tenant. And this is great for somebody who, it might be a buyer who may have bad credit, or maybe they don't have a huge down payment, right? And they don't have the tax returns, they don't have the W-2s. So this might be perfect for them to work directly with a owner like you who can seller finance that property to them, for somebody who, again, they don't have all the rest of those credentials that I mentioned. But this will be perfect for that type of person. So creative financing, I think it's an awesome strategy. Again, you can get into these properties for a little bit of nothing. And you're actually helping somebody who may not have no equity or may be over leveraged or may can't afford to continue that mortgage, or maybe they got multiple mortgages and one of them they got to get rid of. And so it just makes sense. But again, you got to buy right. Like we always talk about, you got to make sure the interest rate is right. You got to make sure it's cash flowing if you want to keep it as a rental. There's a couple of things you want to take into consideration because every deal is not a deal. But again, it's a great strategy, and we're gonna do some future videos and show you guys and break down what makes a good creative finance deal. But hey guys, I'm glad you guys been rocking with me. You know, we went through the 10 different strategies, but guess what guys? I got a bonus 11th strategy, and I know, you know, you guys been, you know, tapping in with me. You guys been hanging on this long in the video. So I just thought it was only right that I give you a bonus strategy, guys. And the bonus strategy, number 11 strategy, is storage units. Now, storage units, again, this is, you know, those facilities where, you know, you can actually house appliances, houseware stuff, furniture, different things like that. You know, there's storage units everywhere. I'm sure there's plenty of them in your neighborhood. And I don't know if you knew that you can actually own a particular storage unit. And a lot of storage units facility owners like it because it's like you're being a landlord, but you're not dealing with the leaky toilets and you're not dealing with the tenants, because lockers don't talk, right? So you're essentially, you know, you're investing into these storage units. And again, you have to have, again, operators involved. You got to have a system in place to be able to do it right. But again, depending on your demographic, depending on the area it is, this could be a definitely lucrative business as well, because it is a business. You're going to have to hire, you know, people to be there to be able to handle the different tenants, being able to get people signed up for the lockers and stuff like that. Again, when people are not paying, people host auctions to sell the lockers, sell the stuff that's inside of them. I don't have a whole lot of experience in storage units, but I have a lot of friends who actually invest into them and they love that business, and they invest into storage units all over the country, right? So I just thought to just throw that in there as a bonus. You know, again, we may, you know, bring on a guest or talk about it at one point. If you guys, you know, want to learn a little bit more about it, just, you know, post a comment below and say, hey, you know, we want to learn a little bit more about storage units. And again, I'll bring in one of my expert guests that's all they do is storage units, and we'll have a great conversation about it. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. We talked about my top 10 strategies, and we also gave you a bonus strategy on 10 different ways that you can actually get started in real estate. And again, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to comment if it's something else you want to learn about, or if it's a strategy I left off. It might be a strategy I left off. Go ahead and comment below. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Make sure you tag that alarm so next time we drop a hot video, you guys get notified. We look forward to seeing you. Real estate pays me, guys. Again, the purpose of this channel is for you to get paid in real estate, and we're going to break down all the different ways and all these videos on how you can get paid. And I'll see you on the next video. We gone.